Hey guys, welcome back to another test and tune. Now in this video I want to just go through the custom settings in xHP. There were a couple of guys that asked on our main channel what settings I actually had for xHP, and I didn't think it was really worth a main video, but we'll put it on test and tune. So these are going to be my custom settings. Just to recap, this car is it has got hybrid turbos, but they don't work properly. So it's running an off-the-shelf MHD low-octane tune at the moment. However, these settings will be staying when we actually wind the power up. Now, the reason I've gone for the way it is with these custom settings, I want to be as quick as I can on my 100 to 200 run. So I want the shifts to be as fast as possible and allow the DME to start feeding power back in. If you're unaware, basically the way that these are normally set up, or how they are from standard, on a shift it will pull power on the shift, and they do it to sort of try and protect the transmission. And once the shift is finished, once the VANOS is back to where it should be, they start feeding timing back in the next gear. Now the VANOS adjusts because the RPMs will drop from say 7,000 down to 4,500, so your VANOS needs to adjust, and all of this happens as the shift happens. So the quicker you can get all of the events that need to happen on a shift over with, the faster the car will be running at its full power again. Okay, so let's have a quick look at how we got this set up. Now I'm just going to go into, actually what I will do first, I'll just show you how this transmission is faring. So it's done 200,000 kilometers, or as near as makes no difference, and it's had its first proper service this week. We did do a 4 litres of oil change back in March, but we didn't change the pan or anything. But this week it has had solenoids, bridge seals, a new pan, and fresh oil. And it only took, I think, about 7 litres of oil. So there'll still be some dirty oil in there. Now this is how the clutches have adapted over, and I think we must have done about 110 Ks and 100 of those with xHP, and I've just been abusing it since we put this drag mode on. So all of the shifts have been in drag mode, and quick charge pressures are all pretty good. Basically, from my understanding when I was learning with xHP a little while ago, anything under 700 is good or in spec. When you go over 700 on these quick charge presses, you're likely to have issues with clutches slipping, even on lower power cars. I have not enabled the line pressure bump yet, so whatever we do with this transmission, we've still got a little bit of room to play if the clutches do start to slip down the track. And we've got the guide on what all these numbers mean. But basically, all of that data there looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. Okay, so on to the custom settings. Now, this is awesome to do one-handed. We'll go there, and we go settings. Okay, so drag mace mode is enabled. With the settings in xHP, you have to click on them, and then you can actually fine-tune them and enable them. You can actually turn them on with this green thing at the top, and then not activate them down inside the settings. But we have drag race mode on. I haven't bothered with custom launch control yet. This car doesn't make enough power for it to matter, so I've left it. The shift map editor, basically all I've done, I've left D mode to standard xHP stage 3 shift positions. That's basically how it, or what RPM and how aggressive it changes gear in D and sports mode. And I've put S mode sportive in there. So sportive plus, sorry, and when you go in those, you've got neutral, relaxed plus and sportive. So I'm just running sportive plus because if I'm in sports mode, I want the car to be revving out a little bit. Or I'll often use sports mode if I'm not like in full hoon mode, but I'm driving quick on back roads, that sort of stuff. Driving enthusiastically, not trying to drive as fast as the car will go, but enthusiastically, I'll run sports mode. Max RPM I haven't set, but we will start playing with that when the 1 to 2 times come into play. Kick down. Now, I've got kick down on for D mode. So the reason for that is because we've got the lazy or the default shifts for D mode, it will often get up into a high gear pretty quickly, and we have still got the kick down enabled if I want it to change down without touching the gear stick. So if I want to overtake someone or something like that, I can initiate the downshift with the accelerator pedal. I've left it that way. And the same with sports mode. The only mode I don't want kick down to work on is M mode, because if I'm in manual mode, I can just change gear myself. Oh, didn't mean to do that. We want to go up there. Okay, now I'm not using stock shift map settings. That's if you want to use the BMW style of shift, like the RPM swish, the RPM shift points. I prefer the xHP ones. I never take off in second gear. I never stay in second gear at a standstill. Throttle blips in M mode. Now, this is how I've set those up. The reason for that is I don't like, sorry, it's pretty warm in here. I don't like the way that the 6AT's downshift. It's still my biggest issue with the 6AT compared to a DCT. The automatic just doesn't, the way it feeds the power back in on the downshift just isn't great. And I've basically set that there so that we've got a slightly higher RPM as we go from second to first, third to second. And really, it's more aggressive. But the idea is it's sort of, I'm hoping it will smooth the shifts down when you're decelerating, coming off the highway or slowing down after doing a pull. That is where I've got the throttle blip set. And I did this in Dylan's car as well. And I do think it makes it better. It seems to get because it brings the RPMs up a bit more, the delay between the load being on the gearbox and then the engine taking over again is reduced. I do think it feels a bit better. Not the end of the world, but that's a personal preference. Shift speeds in M mode. Now, this is a very important one. Everything is maxed. Now, the reason I've maxed it is what I was saying at the start. I want the shift event to be over as quick as possible. I need the gearbox to be done with the gear change so the DME can get on with putting its power back in. On the same note, I feel like with drag mode, the DME is just ignoring the gearbox. That's what it feels like. I need to actually have a decent look at the logs from MHD. It legit feels like it's not pulling timing or anything. It's just keeping full power engaged. Somebody might be able to confirm on that. However, even if we're not actually enabling drag mode and we're in sports mode or something, I want the shifts to be over as quick as I can. This setting here on the DCT car made a huge difference. Max them out. I think it's the best way to go. And the car still drives quite nicely when you're not being a lead foot. And then I think everything else is just all default, not needed. I don't want any torque limits. I don't want any torque reduction upshifts. I just want everything to be as aggressive as we can. And I'm expecting to have to activate that line pressure bump when we wind the power up. I will keep all you guys up to date, probably on the main channel, with how these settings are affected by increasing the power. And basically, we're going to be doubling the power that this engine is making. So it'll be interesting to see how the gearbox reacts, how these settings react, but I'm fairly confident, aside from increasing the line pressure, it's going to be fine. I'll also just touch on as well my theory on drag race mode damaging the gearbox. Now, I know xHP have got that big disclaimer that it will damage your gearbox. They have to do that because if they give, say 20,000 people turn drag race mode on not knowing that it might hurt their gearbox, they will sue xHP. I honestly feel it's more of they're trying to protect themselves in the rear end than anything else. My personal take on how these transmissions work, you want the gear shift to be, you want the clutches to be engaged and disengaged as quickly as possible during a shift. If the clutches are engaging or disengaging a gear, that's when they're going to slip. You want them to be clamped as quickly as possible, and that should reduce the chance of any wear on the clutches. If the clutches are clamped and they're not being slipped for a smooth gear change, you shouldn't wear the clutches. I feel like drag race mode won't wear the clutches as much as letting it slip, especially on a high power car. This is different on low power cars. I am talking about high power cars, like over 600 horsepower. I feel like drag race mode will actually be nicer to the clutches than it will without it. However, I also feel like drag race mode is going to snap axles or output shafts or input shafts. I know it's not a big deal on BMWs to snap input shafts or output shafts with the ZF6s, but it's a big issue with the Falcons. That's the Barra motors, the turbo 4-litre Barra motors. Those things make a lot more torque than the Beamers, and it's pretty common to snap input and output shafts. So I feel like that's what's going to be the issue. My opinion. Feel free to have a discussion down in the comments on why you think drag race mode is going to be harder on the transmission. But considering it's basically speeding up the shift is faster, it's a harder thud, there's less clutch slip. I don't know why it would slip the clutches unless you've got bad clutches to start with, and that aggression introduces a slip instead of allowing the clutch to bite progressively. But I think if that's the case, your car's not going to be going quick anyway. So see how we go. I think it's going to be good. It feels super aggressive. Hopefully we just don't actually do a bearing or a bush in the gearbox. But I think it's going to be fine. We'll have some fun with it, and we'll keep everyone up to date if we break something. Thank you for watching a test and tune, and we'll see you tomorrow on the main channel. Peace out.